And hello once more, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to episode 52 of A Druid's Dozen. Yep, my name's John. I am the rock druid, or some people, that's what some people call me. And I've been record collecting for a long time. Also a bit of a radio DJ with a couple of radio shows. There's the Sunday Rock Show on BCFM radio in Bristol. And there's the Rock Druid Show on astroradio.earth. I'll put links to both shows down there and over there. Once more, the finger dance. And yeah, basically this is me raiding my substantial record collection and dragging out a dozen albums, waving in front of the camera and chatting about them. 6 on CD, 6 on vinyl. And should we start? I don't see why not. We'll kick off with this one. Bit of proto doom metal. Here we go, Kiriton Gold's King of the Dead from 1984. There is the front. There is the back. Whip this out. On that side we have lyrics. Some pictures and credits. I'll take it out there. We have the disc. This is a Roadrunner Records edition. Get this back in the sleeve. Now I have talked about Kiriton Gold on these in the past. And well, I just decided to drag this one out for you as well, because I'm a bit more Kiriton Gold, and you can't beat a bit more Kiriton Gold. And yeah, these guys, stalwarts of the American proto doom scene, started out early 1970s. Although they didn't get much sort of like recognition until the 80s, when they eventually found themselves with a couple of record deals from various small labels. Brought out a series, I think it was 4 albums they did in the 1980s, broke up. Have recently reformed and just got a new EP come out a couple of weeks ago. But I'll deal with that on a separate show because that's quite impressive. But we're talking about this one today. I think this is their second full-length release. King of Hell, with a one of Michael Whelan's legendary Elric, Michael Moorcock covers. Kiriton Gold, they take their name from Tolkien. They write songs about, you know, there's lots of Elric and yeah, sort of Tolkien references and Moorcock references in their lyrics. Musically, they're kind of like a post-Sabbath proto-doom. Maybe not as doomy as sort of like modern doom bands are, but you know, these are one of the guys that kind of wrote the template that doom metal follows. I've always had a soft spot for this band. Ever since I first discovered them back in the 80s, they've always been kind of some of my favourite culty type stuff. This album is pretty damn good. 8 tracks on here. There's Toccata in D, which is a sort of heavy metalised version of the old J.S. Bach organ number. Most famous in the UK charts by prog rockers Sky, of course. But then you got to throw in some of the other tracks like Atom Smasher, Black Machine, Marsh of the Pit, King of the Dead, Fingers of Scorn, their title track, Kiriton Gold, and Death of the Sun. Everyone's a bit of a gem. Yes, it may be a little bit rough around the edges production wise, and you know, Kiriton Gold were never a slick band, but you know, I like their roughness. I like their kind of no nonsense, kind of straight down the line approach to things. You know, minimal polish. Production's all right. Trying to think who produced this. It's on the inner sleeve here somewhere. Should put it out and let you know. Tim Nelson was the producer. He's done a fair job of keeping them rough, but kind of making them listenable. Overall, a sweet album by a great band. They're a bit cult. Even these days, they're a bit culty underground. And you know, you mentioned the sort of metalheads, they go, oh, who? Well, you know, don't go, who with this lot. Go check them out, please. You may enjoy what you hear. Yeah, our first one today, the rather excellent King of the Dead by Kiriton Ungol. Okay, next up, CD time. Here we go. This is Do That and You'll Lose It by Juicy Lucy from 2006. There's the front. There's the back of the box. Open this up. There's the disc in there. Whip this out. It's just a basic folded card. On the back there you have a couple of recipes for Juicy Lucy cocktails. Vodka, rum, Southern Comfort, pineapple juice, grapefruit juice, you know. Sounds very alcoholic, and recipe 2 involves gin. I don't like gin. Most other spirits I'm fine with, but gin just gets on my tits. Anyway, and then there's the inner sleeve. Now, Juicy Lucy were I say were, they're still technically together, although I haven't seen anything active by them for a good few years now. They're a kind of British blues rock band. Started out late 60s, came to prominence in the early 1970s when they had a kind of minor UK hit with a cover of the Who Do You Love, which is the Bo Diddley classic, and did a whole string of albums. I had quite a few interesting people pass through their ranks over the years, including Mickey Marsden, later to find fame with Whitesnake, and not Mickey Marsden, Mickey Moody, sorry, later to find fame with Whitesnake, and a couple of others. And you know, never, apart from that one brief moment in the sun hit single, and a string of quite interesting albums that kind of fuse kind of prog and a bit of kind of blues rock with a bit of kind of, you know, like jazz in places as well on some of their stuff. Like, you know, I managed to kind of keep themselves going on the UK underground for many years. Let's say this was their most recent album to date, and this is 2006, although the band had been gigging up until a couple of years ago. I think there's only the rhythm section left on this in the original lineup, but it's still quite an impressive record. I do like this one. I've got to admit, until I dragged it out earlier in the week to bring to you today, I hadn't heard it for ages, and I gave it another listen and quite enjoyed it. The opening cut, Silver Bird, probably my favourite cut on the album, although there's Madeleine and Susie, One Time, One Place, God Only Knows, 40 Days, all of which, you know, very, very infectious, great little kind of blues influence, sort of like old school hard rock songs. Yeah, they're a band that I'm realising that I've got this and a couple of other odd tracks on compilation albums by Juicy Lucy. Something I need to kind of rectify, so over the next couple of weeks I'm going to try and get my hands on some more Juicy Lucy material. So, you know, watch this space and I'll bring it to you if I can get my hands on some physical format copies. But in the meantime, they're a band that's got a very interesting back catalogue that's well worth exploring. I won't say this is typical or the best place to start because I don't know it that well, but I will say that this is a pretty good album and it's worth a listen. Yeah, Juicy Lucy, do that and you'll lose it, 2006. Okay, next up, gonna have something quite interesting. I'm going to adjust this slightly. Yes, this is a picture disc, Hawkwind Zones from 1983. There's the front. Well, I'll pull the whole disc out and show it to you like this. There's the front. There is the back. I thought this one had a run out groove message, but it's hard to tell on picture discs. No, I can't see one. But I do know that when it comes to this album, on picture disc there are only I can't remember if it's 1500 or 2000 pressed, making this a bit of a rare baby. And I did check on a couple of record collectors sites and auction sites, and going rate for this one can be anything between about 35 to around about £70, depending on what site you go to and how much you're prepared to pay for it. Needless to say, I paid nothing near like that sort of money for it. I bought this for standard price when it came out, not realising that it was a limited edition because you know, I had a picture disc. A couple of mates of mine that brought this album at the same time on release also got the picture disc, and maybe that was the batch that turned up in disc and tape records in Bristol. But yeah, now overall this is a part of a series of compilation albums that Hawkwind brought out, well, not compilation, outtake albums that Hawkwind brought out in the early to mid 80s. Other ones include the 2 Independence Days EP. There's one called Intake Outtake. There's a couple of others as well that kind of collect up loose tracks from that Dave Brock had knocking around in the studio, and decided to bang them out. This isn't a brilliant album, I'll admit, hand on heart. This does sound like an outtakes album. If I remember rightly, most of the first side of this, which is Zones, Dangerous Visions, Running Through the Back Brain and Islands, they're kind of outtakes from the Levitation sessions from 1980. They include Ginger Baker of Cream fame on drums. The other tracks, Motorway City at the end of side 1 through all through side 2, which includes Utopia, Social Alliance, Sonic Attack, Dreamworker and Brainstorm, are live cuts recorded around about 1982 on the I think it was You Choose Your Masks tour, if I remember rightly. I did look it up, but can't quite remember. But anyway, the outtake tracks are okay. They do sound like outtakes. They're nothing astounding, you know. But you know, for Hawkwind completionists, they are sort of essential because they're tracks that have never had releases anywhere else. The live tracks, again, they're okay. There are better recordings of nearly all the songs out there, although, you know, there are worse recordings of all those songs out there. So it makes it a kind of one. This way album makes it one for Hawkwind completionists rather than a must-go-to for Hawk fans. But it's quite sweet, and the fact it's on picture disc with some nice artwork on the front by a guy called Jay Coulthard. Yeah, it makes it kind of an interesting collector's edition. So yeah, picture disc of Hawkwind Zones from 1983. For the Hawkwind completionists and collectors mainly, but an interesting deal for anyone else. Okay, next up, another CD, and it's this. This is the Terminate with Extreme Prejudice EP by Valdez, and this is, I believe, 2005. I may be wrong. (2002). This is an early one. So there's the front. It's one of these kind of slimline jewel cases. I'll whip him out. The CD is just complete blank. It was done that way on purpose by the band. And that's how the gatefold folds out. There's sort of like some lyrical stuff on here, but that's about it. Now, Valdez were I think they've broken up, but I'm not 100% sure. And if anyone knows any different, or any members of Valdez see this, can they let me know if I'm right or wrong? But I think Valdez are no more. They're kind of a Bristol kind of punk band. They were active throughout the 2000s. Into the 2010s, but I've not heard of anything by these for years, and you know, which is a shame because these were great. I mean, in the early days of Alien Stashed In, we played with these guys a lot, which is the reason I got one of the reasons I got this. I've had them on the radio show a few times and that as well, back in the early days of the BCFM show. Really good kind of punk. They're kind of not quite hardcore, but they're getting that way. There's 4 tracks on here, none of which are more than 3 minutes long. You've got Dead Town, You Invited Us, Terror Campaign, and Is This Your Victory? All of which are really sweet little out and out pogo fueled kind of songs for smashing systems too. Yeah, not much else to say. I know Valdez went on and did a couple of 4-length albums, and the guys, they also founded Cider Country Records. They founded, of which I featured a fair few Cider County releases on here in the past, and I probably will again because I've got quite a few in the collection. But yeah, how obtainable this is, if it's still available, I don't know, but I do know if you like a bit of punk and like it nice and sweet and to the point, Valdez were great. Oh, great live band as well, but on studio they're pretty good. And this is a sweet little EP. Yeah, 2005. Valdez, Terminate with Extreme Prejudice. Okay, next up we'll have a bit of prog. Here we go. Roger Dean cover as well. What more can you want? There's the front. It folds out lustily. into a rather nice Roger Dean thing here. Black cats, 6 arms, strange alien gods, fantasy cities. What more do you want? Flick it onto the inside. There we have lyrics and band photos. Bit of credits as well. And just in case anyone's interested, I'll whip this out. There we go, Warner Brothers label. There. Yeah, this is Bedside Manners Are Extra by Greenslade from 1973. If you don't know, Greenslade, one of the most English sounding prog rock bands you can think of. Very, very keyboard orientated. I don't think they ever actually had a dedicated guitarist. No, they didn't. It was Andrew McCulloch on drums, Dave Lawton and Dave Greenslade on keyboards, and also did a bit of vocals, and then a guy called Tony Reeves, who was primarily a bass player but did dabble with a bit of guitar when needed, but not all that often. Makes for a kind of very interesting kind of quite a light sound, very kind of trippy. And when Alien Station on their last album were experimenting with wanted to do something a bit prog rock, and we wanted to make the sound a bit different from your sort of standard Yes cliches. We did. We all sat down, listened to some Greenslade, and went, "Yeah, that's what we want to go for." So there's a track on the last Alien Station album that sounds a bit Greenslade, but yeah, they're a great band. They never really got, maybe it was the lack of guitar, but they never really got the success and fame they deserved. Did 4 great albums in the early to mid 70s. The band fell apart, and the 5th album, the Cactus Choir, came out as a Dave Greenslade solo work. They have reformed and done a couple of albums since, although these days Dave Greenslade is primarily does work for TV and film soundtracks, and if you look very, I can't remember anything you've done for the top of your head, but you watch anything on BBC or ITV, dramas, etc. Quite often you'll get music by David Greenslade comes up at the end. Same bloke who's the main man in this. And of course Dave Greenslade started out in Colosseum back in the late 60s, kind of jazz rock outfit. Yeah, really good album. Not the most, Greenslade aren't the most accessible of bands, but once you get your head around what they do, they're very, a very sweet listen. Not my favourite. This isn't my favourite Greenslade album. That's probably Time and Tide. Although this Bedside Manners Are Extra probably comes in second. The cuts on here include, yeah, you got the title cut, and it's sort of like half the track's near instrumental. Pilgrim's Progress, 7.5 minutes of interpretation of a John Bunyan kind of novel. And then my favourite cut on here, the opening cut on side 2, another instrumental, Drum Folk, which is an Andrew McCulloch led, basically it's a drum workout with some nice jiggy, folky kind of harpsichord work from Dave Greenslade thrown over the top. Yeah, just a sweet record. Prog rockers should love it. Most other people, a lot of other people find it interesting. Their albums are available if you look for them online, so worth a download, worth a listen. Yeah, it's 1973, Greenslade, Bedside Manners Are Extra. Okay, next up we got something from the really obscure part of my collection. This is Tasty N and Take a Sledgehammer to Your Nan. There's the front. There's nothing on the back. If I pop this open, there's nothing on the disc because it's a home burnt one. I pull this out, and we have a booklet here. There's the two guys in the band themselves. And then you got this kind of little booklet, home assembled by the band, all of which I'll come to in a minute. Just pictures and lyrics and all this kind of stuff. Now, this dates back. I haven't got a release date for this, but I think it's around about 2005, 2006. I may be wrong, but actually there's a press release here as well. Oh yes, there's a little kind of letter they sent me. Now, this lot, there was a bit of a craze going around Bristol and a few other places back in the mid 2000s. Kind of ultra lo-fi bedroom punk. The idea being is that you make music using minimal facilities, minimal recording, minimal production, minimal instrumentation, and you just have fun doing it. To me, it's the true element of what punk's about. It's just kind of finding a way to say what you want to say without worrying about the unnecessary bullshit of kind of musicianship, etc. And take a Sledgehammer to your nan, sum this up perfectly. Two guys that kind of want to kind of explore that to the max, to the extent that they've got a kind of beat-up guitar. The drummer just had a pair of drumsticks and plays whatever comes to hand. He plays chairs, he plays books, he plays saucepans. Recorded by sticking a mic in the middle of a room, minimal mixing, no post-production apart from a little bit of a clean-up, and even home produced by burning up on your own computer and basically making your own booklets go in the CD cover. As punk and as lo-fi as you can get. And to be honest with you, I think it's great. Yes, it is extremely rough around the edges. Sounds all over the place. It's extremely messy, but overall it's pretty good. You've got tracks like Love Song, Help the Hearses, Satan's Children, Climax, The Moan of Man, minus a gay character theme, My 5 STDs. It's something that's thrown together and it's glorious for it. I don't know if you'll ever be able to find a copy of this. Apparently, I said about about 1,500 copies that Hawkwind Prejudice pressed. This runs into the tens. They sent me a copy because I begged them, and yes, I have given it radio airplay, and I will intend to do it again because stuff like efforts like this deserve to be kind of remembered. So yeah, take a Sledgehammer to your nan and taste the end. Around about the mid 2000s, DIY bedroom punk a la mode. Okay, next up, here we go. This is a band out of Somerset. The band's Made to Waste, and this is Bones for the Cause from I think that's 2018, I may be wrong. I've got to be later than that, I've got to be earlier than that. Might be 2012, I don't know, it's one of these bands that's kind of put the information on the thing in very small writing. 2012, yeah, that's right, yeah. It's a personal thing of mine when you try and pack lots of info onto your CD covers. You know, I know rock and roll is supposed to be a young man's game, but it isn't anymore. I'm trying to read it with my fading eyesight. Not good. Anyway, there's the front. I'll whip the inlay card out so you can get a better view of it later. There's the back of the box. There is the disc. There's a better view of the cover. And the rest is lyrics and minimal credits. Right, Made to Waste, band out of somewhere in the Somerset, if I remember rightly. Exactly where, I'm not sure, but I know where I came across them. Every year there's a fantastic little festival held. Well, it wasn't held last year because of COVID, but fantastic little festivals held in Yeovil. It's called Kennet Fest. Started out when a bunch of kids at a sixth form college, one of which happens to the name is David Kennet, decided to, his mates wanted what to do for his birthday, and he said, I fancy going to see a couple of bands. Now, Yeovil isn't a place that's got a renowned rock and roll live music scene, so these guys took over a local pub and got a few bands in. It was that successful that it's grown out to an annual event, and it's now run over 2 days, Friday and a Saturday night, drawing in bands from over the West Country, and including some quite big names like Cybernetic Witch Cult have played there. And COVID, etc. But oh, sorry, Corvid, not COVID. Corvid, the Bath punk band. But overall, we played there. Stashed played there a couple of times. Apparently, Mr. Kennet quite likes us, and you know, we played there a few times. And one of the times we played there on the bill with us was this lot, Made to Waste. Really cool, kind of groove metal type outfit. Very much in your face, got hints of metalcore in there, but only sprinkling of metalcore. And they've got a couple of albums out, of which I've got both of them. And this one's 2012, there's one after this. Sadly, I think the band are demised because I haven't seen any activity on any of their social media platforms since about 2016. But you know, I'm hoping it's a hiatus rather than an end, because these guys are live very entertaining, and they're no slouches in the studio either. This is a pretty sweet little sort of like seven track album. Highlights on here include Goddamn Victim, Kingdom of the Blessed, and Calling on Monsters. Great songs. The rest of them are quite cool as well, but they're the ones that I can remember really enjoying and kind of went, oh yes, and I spun this the other day to kind of refresh my memory of it. It's well played. Got a praise. What's the guy's name? Yeah, John Mullane, really flash guitarist, and John Mahern, who's I think he's his brother, bassist vocalist. Great four-piece band. Yeah, not much else to say really. One of these kind of little gems that's kind of you may find knocking around sort of second-hand on the second-hand record shop or something. If you do, it's going to be cheap. Grab it. And it's never going to be valuable, but it's going to be a nice piece of music to have in your collection that not many other people will. Yeah, bones for the cause. 2012, made to waste. Good stuff. Okay, next up we'll have a bit more prog rock, I think. Here we go. This is Ra by Eloy from 1984. There's the front. There is the back. Don't think there's anything special on the inner sleeve here or any gift inlay cards. No. Yeah, there's disc. FM Revolver label, this one. Now, Eloy, classic German rock band, came out of the prog rock band, came out of the krautrock movement in the late 1970s, early 1970s, and from about 1972, I think, their first album, their eponymous debut, right through until today. The band is still very much an ongoing concern. Have done some really, really good, kind of quite trippy, kind of sort of prog rock albums that kind of border on space rock in places. Band that I've got a lot of time for. I have nowhere near a complete set of Eloy albums. I have about just over half a dozen of them, but you know, I think there's about 30 of them in total. This one of their kind of mid-80s albums, maybe not my favourite, but it's nothing bad about it. Don't let me that put you off. Just that it does suffer a little bit, this one, from that 80s production, you know, kind of a little bit over slick. You know, I think there's a mistake a lot of bands made back then, that kind of, you know, oh, we got new to recording the technology, let's make ourselves sound as polished as possible. And unless you're a certain type of stadium rock band, you suffer for it. Eloy sadly suffer for it to a certain extent on here. Not saying this isn't a bad album, it's not. It's you know, I have yet to hear a bad album from Eloy overall. And this one has got some pretty cool tracks on it. Voyager of the Future Race, the opening cut, 9 minutes of spacey genius, really. Invasion of a Megaforce, Rainbow the Hero, Dreams, Sensations. It's all good stuff. It's all fairly epic in length. It's very sweet. Like I said, the production lets it down slightly because it's a bit overproduced, but the performance is Martin Bornham, the main man, guitarist and vocalist, on fine form. Sings with a German accent in English, which I really do like. You know, there's a big mistake of vocalists, if you're not American, that try and sound American. Singing in natural accent, it gives your voice a character. Fish from Meridian had it. This guy on here has got it. Overall, just pretty sweet. Again, the other downside on this is the album cover. They've used some pretty good graphic artists for their album covers of Eloy, including the great Rodney Matthews, but not on this one. They just got some kind of poor 2001 Space Odyssey Baby in a Vortex kind of thing going on, which again lets the album down slightly, but that's a minimal gripe. Yeah, overall, not the Eloy album I'd start with. I'll go for something like Planets or Silent Cries, Mighty Echoes, but you know, worth it if you're into kind of prog rock, or if you like that kind of polished kind of Yes 90125 style, slightly overproduced sound, then you might like this. Yeah, Eloy, Ra, 1984. Not bad. Okay, next up we'll have that's something from my hometown of Bristol here. This is Retrodog and Rollercoaster. There is the front. There is the back. Retrodog, not Robodog, what am I about? Retrodog and Rollercoaster. There's the disc. That is the inner card. You can either have it as white or red. I like the red, but you can turn it that way and have it as white. Now, Retrodog were a, now I'm not sure whether these were a full-blown band. Another one from 2012. I'm not quite sure if these were a full-blown band or just a project. Well, I know they were featured around a guy called Alex Jones. No, Alex Johns, sorry, not the con man, conspiracy theorist, absolute whack job. Yeah, do my Andrew Lamar impersonation. Yeah, came out based around Bristol, around East Bristol, the St George area, which is literally a couple of hundred yards up the road from where I'm living. Kind of doing a kind of alt rock kind of thing. Slightly, maybe it's even a slightly folk influence on here. It's a 13-track album. The albums of which are quite short, are quite sort of short, so sweet. Highlights include the kind of slightly punky North of Gloucester. You got Howling Beast. You got the opening cut, which is quite proggy in places, which is the Rollercoaster itself. Moon Over You, Go Careful, I Am Love. They're all pretty sweet songs. Yeah, this album came out, and then I have heard bugger alls from the band since. Played this on the radio, and then band stroke project have vanished into the ether, and there is nothing on the internet about them apart from this one album. Makes me think they were a one-off project by a group of local Bristol musicians. Yeah, it's not bad. Whether you're going to be able to get a copy of this, I don't know. Whether you'll be able to actually give it, and I was going to say this, I haven't said this for the last couple of weeks, but owing to kind of algorithms on both Facebook and on YouTube, I'd love to give you needle drops or you know, sample cuts, audio cuts from these, but I can't. I can't risk a copyright strike, and my channel's so small that it doesn't, even if when I have got them on my own band and I protested that they're stopping me putting up songs that Aitken wrote, you know, YouTube don't even bother to acknowledge my fucking emails. Yeah, there's no place for the little man in the big world, is there? Yeah, but those little men can eat your feet, you corporate giants. Sorry. Anyway, yeah, there are a few places where you can hear bits of this on YouTube, on the net, but only a few sample cuts. So this may be one of those bastard to track down albums. But if you like something a bit quirky and a bit kind of alt rock, it may be worth your while trying to give this one a listen. Yeah, 2012 Rollercoaster by Retrodog. Okay, let's have some new over British heavy metal. Yeah, Vardis, 100 miles an hour. Guaranteed, no overdubs. Signed by Steve Zodiac himself. Yeah. There's the front. There is the back. So it's their debut album because it's got one rose on there. Early Vardis albums had a 1 rose, 2 rose, 3 rose, 4 rose, 5 roses I think it was. Denoting the number of the album. Quite an obscure label, Logo Records, 1980. and this was recorded live at the various places on their 1980 band's 1980 UK tour in July at the Slough College, London Electric Ballroom, and Lowestoft Pier, South Pier Pavilion. Yeah, it's a live album. Debut album live. Quite a few bands have done in the United British heavy metal bands did kind of their debut albums were live. Stampede did it, A to Z did it, and Vardis did it. And this one is pretty sweet. I've got to admit, I've loved Vardis. My favourite album is Quo Vardis, 1982. But you know, all the Vardis stuff is pretty good. Vardis were, although they're kind of classified as New British heavy metal, they had been going for a long time before the old New Wave started. They formed in about 1973 as a sort of rock covers band working out of I think it was South Yorkshire, around that area. A few line-up changes, and then all of a sudden the New Wave of British heavy metal hit, and Vardy suddenly found themselves, instead of playing to 10 people, were playing to hundreds, and they began to get some of the success they deserved. Did about 4 or 5 albums in the 80s, a couple of EPs, load of singles. Never really, well, a few indie album chart hits, but never anything major in the UK charts. But you know, they toured with Motorhead and a few other people and built up a bit of a cult following, me included. And I was lucky enough to see these 1984, 85 at the old Granary Club in Bristol. Very entertaining band. Anyway, this is their debut solo album at debut live album, sorry, and it's live debut, sorry, and it's a sweet one. You got one of my all-time favourite Vardis cuts is on this record. Originally a single, but there's a live version on here. Situation Negative, Let's Go, 100 Miles an Hour, If I Were King, another fantastic one of their kind of live anthems. The Lion's Share. It just rocks. It sums up every time I play this album, and I do play it quite regularly. It does take me back to sweaty clubs like the Granary Club in Bristol, and what's the one in Cardiff? I think Boogie's in Cardiff. I frequented from time to time. St James's in Birkenhead, various places I've lived and got the kind of sweaty rock clubs. Seeing a kind of small up and coming band giving it rice, you know, when you're cracked in like sardines and there's that much sweat in the air, the building's developed its own weather system. Yeah, it takes me back to those sweaty days. Whether I want to relive them or not these days, I don't know. I like a bit more comfort at my gigs, but you know, those were the days when you could be, the crush at the front was that severe. You could lay flat in a crowd with your feet and hands off the deck and sort of levitating the crusher bodies. Pretty dangerous these days, but yeah. I mean, when you're in your teens and your early 20s, you don't bother about that. But anyway, coming back to this, great album, almost an essential for any collectors of the New Wave of British heavy metal. And yeah, if you want to explore Vardis, all their albums are pretty good. This is as good a place to start as any. Yeah, 1980 Vardis, 100 Miles an Hour. Okay, the final CD for the day. Now, we had one of my regulars contacting me, I can't remember your name, mate, but asking me for a bit more goth and industrial on the show. Almost asked for some techno, but I don't really do techno and dance, but I might have a couple that if I can dig them out, I can revisit and wave them at you. Gonna take me a while, it might take me a couple of weeks to get to some of my more obscure goth and techno, which is buried in various boxes and parts of the stacks. But in the meantime, I hope this one kind of gives you some kind of small sucker. Not pure goth, I know, but it's a band that kind of came out of the goth scene, and this album marks their transition from being kind of pure goths into you know, sort of damn fine heavy rock band. Yeah, this is The Cult and Love from 1985. Excuse me a minute. yeah, the cult started out as a Southern Death cult, bit punky, started going a bit goth, became the Death Cult briefly, then became the Cult, you know. Did a really good gothic album called Dreamtime, which I haven't got on physical format, I'm afraid, which is the reason why I'm waving this one in front of you rather than Dreamtime. Great album, I have it on MP3, but one of those albums, situations where a mate of mine had it, and I had this one, so we kind of ripped copies off for each other. So I can't wave that one at the moment, although I do want to get a physical copy of Dreamtime at some point. But anyway, this is their next album. This was the second album as the Cult, and it marks that kind of move away from the kind of pure goth to the kind of goth tinged hard rock that they will do for the next few albums. This is a bit of a classic. I know it's a bit of a cliche when you say it, but believe me, it is. From the opening cut, Nirvana, you got big neon glitter, the title track Love. My favourite cut on the album, Brother Wolf, Sister Moon, absolutely storming. Oh, I meant to show you there's the front, sorry, there's the back, there's the disc, that's what's behind the disc. And there's because this is a kind of CD reissue remaster, there's the kind of besides the credits in the booklet, you've got the whole story, in-depth recording interviews with Ian Ashbury, and got the story of the recording of the album. That's quite an interesting read, which I'm not going to now. Yeah, anyway, I want to say Brother Wolf, Sister Moon, my favourite cut on the record. Revolution, She Saw Sanctuary, Black Angel. This is a sweet, sweet record. From my live club DJing experiences, I've known that tracks from this album, you know, can get the bikers and the goths on the dance floor simultaneously, and you know, and get them all partying together. Yeah, not a weak track on it. It's dark, it's moody, it's menacing, yet it's got a kind of anthemic uplift that, you know, kind of characterises what I call the three classic Cult albums, which is Love, Electric, and then Sonic Temple. After that, I think the Cult lost the plot a little bit, but it was with the album Ceremony, etc. But you know, I'll chuck Dreamtime in as well. But those first four Cult albums cannot be faulted. So yeah, 1985, Love by the Cult. If you haven't heard it, do yourself a favour and go check it out. It is absolutely storming. Brings us on to the final vinyl, and we're going to finish up with a bit of Cheap Trick. This is also 1985. Came out within a couple of weeks of the Cult album, if I remember rightly. This is Standing on the Edge. There is the front. There is the back. No inner sleeve or carrot or anything. Just Epic Records pressing. No run out groove messages. Yeah. Now, I'll be honest with you, and I will agree, because a lot of people say, and I tend to agree, that Cheap Trick peaked around about 1979, 1980 with albums like Dream Police, you know, the classic Live at the Budokan, kind of albums around about that, you know. But of course, Cheap Trick, classic US kind of pop rock band. Popular enough and good looking enough for the girlies, but kind of rock and roll enough for the fellas. That's why they used to describe themselves. And the 80s were a kind of bit of a kind of low, long, slow kind of slide into kind of naffness for Cheap Trick. They did recover over, you know, in later years, but You know, there's albums like The Doctor and what's the one with with the flame on it? Get weaker and weaker as they go. This one in 1985 is kind of, it's got its poor points, but on the other hand, it's got two or three tracks on here that are classic Cheap Trick. So this one does kind of hold itself up to a certain extent. Also on here, you got a guy called John Brandt on bass, replacing, I can't remember the guy's name, but replacing the original bass player. But that's by the by. You got two tracks on here: the opening cut on side 1, Little Sister, and the opening cut on side 2, Standing on the Edge. Are classic Cheap Trick numbers, up tempo, partying, anthemic. Just great numbers. You've also got things like She's Got the Motion, Wild Wild Women. Again, fairly worthy tracks, and then the others not quite as naff as some of the tracks I'll go on to record later on, but you know, they don't really hold up to tracks like Surrender and Dream Police and Why Oh Why Oh Why, etc. But yeah, I do like this album, primarily just for Little Sister and the title cut. And I'll be honest with you, if I'm playing Cheap Trick and this album gets sort of like a fancy dipping into this album, I don't really go much beyond those two songs. Is it worth getting an album just for two songs? In the case of those two tracks on here, I'll say yes. But you know, these days with kind of digital downloads, you can download those two tracks. And I think Little Sister was the lead single off the album anyway, so yeah. But anyway, not classic Cheap Trick, but not their worst album either. Standing on the Edge, Cheap Trick, 1985. So that's this week's selection, over, done with and dealt with. Hope there was some interesting stuff there for you, and I hope I've kind of, and I do get people contacting me saying, oh, you reviewed an album that I've never heard of, so I've checked it out, and you're right, it's good, or yeah, you know, so I'm going to go and check that out. So, you know, let me know if there's anything that I've waved in front of you that you intend to have a look at for your own listening pleasure. Do so. Remember, you can always Google a lot of the tracks off these albums. Okay, the Tasty End stuff's going to be very, very hard to find, but a lot of the other stuff you should be able to find at least some snippet of them on the internet somewhere. And remember, if you like what you hear, give me a like, make a comment. It all helps the YouTube's algorithm, because the more people like and comment, the more it shares the love to other people that may want to hear it. So, and I'm not out this to make money. This channel's just to, you know, was primarily just share kind of my love of music with a few friends. And you know, anyone else that wants to watch is more than welcome to come and join us in a little kind of record collecting vinyl bubble of fun. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, links to the radio shows are down there and over there. Finger dance, and it's always good to hear from you. And check the radio shows out if you want. You may give you a clue on the Rock Druid this week. I'm playing Captain Lockheed and the Starfighters by Robert Calvert in its entirety, and there's some really good stuff coming up on the Sunday Rock Show, including some classic tunes by Nazareth. So yeah, check them out. And so until then, and next week, peeps, I loves every single last ones of you. Stay safe, keep record collecting, and I'm out of here. Bye.